Looking at our world from a theological perspective. This is the Theology Central Podcast, making theology central.
Good morning, everyone. It is Thursday, June the 23rd, 2022. It is currently 10:09 a.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live, two stories above a street right here in Abilene, Texas. Wherever you may be, whenever you may listen, however you may listen, thank you so very much. We greatly appreciate it. We're going to get right to it. I don't know how many broadcasts I'm going to do today, but I'm going to do as many as I possibly can. I got a lot of other things going on, but I'm going to try to make today very productive. Now, one of the things I absolutely love about the way I podcast is that obviously I love the fact that it's live. I love the fact that a lot of times I turn on the microphone and kind of in real time, I kind of let out a stream of consciousness. I try to think things out live on the air. Now, you may not appreciate that. You may, it's a little disorganized, but it's very real. It's very truthful. And it's just me a lot of times trying to process something. And a lot of times I don't even really know, I'll end up in a kind of a line of thinking, a line of reasoning that I didn't even really know I was headed to. And I always kind of find that interesting. Maybe you do not, but I mention all of that. I say all of that. I explain all of that because that's kind of how we arrived at this moment. I don't know if you remember, I started receiving emails from different ministries asking for money. $394,000 by the end of June. $500,000. I received another one the other day. I think it was 200 and something thousand. I received another one for 80,000. And all of these ministries asking for money. We have to have money. We have to have money. We have to have money. And we went through their emails and how they're basically, and all of them using that something bad is going on in the culture, that everything is bad, but we need to give them money. And I could have looked at it from that perspective, but for some reason, again, just talking things out live on the air, just trying to process my thinking live on the air, I kind of arrived at this perspective. Well, wait a minute. These ministries are asking for all of this money. How much ministry does that actually represent? I started looking at it and maybe from a very pragmatic standpoint. I even acknowledged that my perspective could be extremely fleshly. But I looked at it like, okay, I give you, let's say I give, whatever ministry, I'm not going to, start naming all of them, but all of the ministries that I've received emails from, basically their ministry amounts to nothing more than a 30-minute program Monday through Friday that airs on radio stations and also shows up as a podcast. One broadcast, 30 minutes long, 5 times a week. And I'm like, that's it? So you need hundreds of thousands of dollars to basically give me one 30-minute program per day. Now, maybe I shouldn't look at it this way, but I'm thinking, I don't understand what you need all of that money for, because all you're really doing in almost every single case, in fact, every single case, all they're doing is taking the sermons they preach at their church, edit them down to about 22 to 24 minutes, produce a little intro and outro, and then they need $394,000, $500,000, not for their church, but for this separate ministry that they refer to as their, radio ministry, internet ministry, whatever the case may be. And I have a hard time going, wait. So, and in most of these cases, if you do a little bit of research, they're separate. This ministry is separate from the church. And in many cases, it has like its own call center, its own headquarters, its own staff. And it's like, I don't understand. Why do you need all of that? Because most of the money, no matter what they claim, because they never really break down the percentages, why do you need that much money to air an edited sermon? It just makes no sense to me. And if someone is sending them hundreds of thousands of dollars, you think they would be broadcasting, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? They would be breaking in constantly, and they would be doing live streams and on demand, and they would have just all of this content. But in most cases, these large ministries that are bringing in millions of dollars, they produce so very little. So I started asking that kind of question. And then I kind of moved it over to the church, which was somewhat controversial. I can sometimes say the same thing about churches. How much money given to churches to maintain the building, the staff, how much of the money really just goes to administrative costs, to upkeep, and all of those types of things versus the amount of ministry those churches actually produce? Again, a very fleshly and pragmatic perspective. But I'll just give an example when I was a Lutheran. Okay, when I was a Lutheran, right? Beautiful building. It was an absolutely beautiful building. You had the building, and then you had, I guess, quote unquote, what they call the fellowship hall. I don't know how much it costs for the upkeep of the building, but here's the ministry that church gave me. This was it. Sunday school, Sunday morning service, no Sunday night, typically not even much of a Wednesday night. They did have kind of a little Wednesday night Bible study. It really didn't amount to much. So basically just a Sunday morning sermon. Sunday school really wasn't much either. So basically it was just, maybe 2 hours on a Sunday if you're lucky. And the sermon was about 15 to 20 minutes long. And that was it. Now, I know they would say, well, it's more than just the preaching. It's the sacrament. It's the Lord's Supper. Okay, I understand all of that. It's the liturgy. Okay, I understand all of that. But still, you just have to ask yourself, what? All that money is going to what? I mean, and even as a pastor, I mean, I just, you're, and in fact, full-time salary. I'm like, you're getting a full-time salary to produce one sermon a week. I mean, really? What are you doing? He said, well, he's there for all kinds of other things. I guess he wasn't doing anything for me Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I've questioned that. Like, all that money going for what? What are you accomplishing? Because I still think that there should be some kind of a correlation between all of the money versus the amount of ministry being produced. I just think that it's great. At least in many Catholic churches, there's daily mass, right? There's mass in the morning. Sometimes they have multiple masses per day, in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening. At least in many cases, there's a mass occurring, almost every single day. That to me makes more sense than in many Protestant churches where they've in many cases eliminated Sunday night services. In many cases, they've eliminated Wednesday night services. In many cases, they've gone to small groups which don't even meet inside the church building. And you're like, so I don't know if you've ever been to a large church, just go and just like on a typical day and just try to find, if you know anyone who goes to a large church, how many people work on staff? And you're like, so you've got, in many cases they have people for producing, I guess, I'll call them the technical people, website and all of that. They got all kind of, we could go through all the different possible positions, but I know someone who works at a large church here in Abilene, and it's like they've got all these offices and all of these different people that kind of like have an office manager, and it's like all these positions. And I'm just like, I don't get it. Now, the reason I'm kind of going back to that line of reasoning is because, well, guess what I have in front of me? I have the following, all right? I have the following. If I can get to the article, here we go. Here's the headline. 206-year-old church permanently closes due to dwindling numbers and failure to attract younger members. Now, this is, I can't say, I don't have statistics in front of me to go, how is this becoming more common than it was 5 years ago, 10 years ago, but I do continue to see more and more reports of dwindling numbers in large churches, laying off staff, or the churches just closing down. Or in some cases, these churches that have like all of these different satellite campuses, closing those down and laying off staff because numbers are dwindling and therefore they can't maintain the staff. They can't maintain all of the different things that they're doing. And when I say all of the different things they're doing, most of that does not actually translate to meaningful ministry. So here we have a 206-year-old church that permanently closes to dwindling numbers. The numbers started dwindling and they're like, that's it. We call it quits. We throw in the towel. Everyone go away. And I'm just sitting there going, okay, let's just read a little bit about this. I think we're going to have to start thinking differently about a lot of this. And 206 years, Christ Church in Southwick, Massachusetts, has survived changes to its name, facilities, and membership. After more than 2 years of the COVID-19 pandemic, members voted in May to permanently disband the congregation on July 1st due to dwindling numbers, and the pastor decided it was a good time to retire too. So the numbers started dropping, and they're like, okay, we're going to throw. The pastor's like, we're going to throw in the towel. The church members are like, let's disband and let's go away. And I'm sitting here thinking, wait, time out. You have a building, right? You have a building, okay? You have some people. Do you have enough money to maintain the building? Right? If you do, then start finding new ways to minister. Right? Like, it's so weird. It's like, I think in the minds of many, and I think maybe this is where I'm wrong. Again, I love this part of podcasting. I can sit here and just talk this out, and you can tell me whether you agree or disagree. I think for many Christians, and I've got to be very careful how I say this, because I know many are going to disagree, but I think there's an element of truth here. I think for many Christians, what matters most, and I'm going to use the buzzword that's used by so many churches, the community is really more important than the ministry. Now, I know they will merge the two together and say, no, ministry is important. But I think in most churches, it's really not the sermon. It's the just coming together, meeting new, developing relationships, maybe the fellowships, potlucks, get-togethers. It's building, quote unquote, the community is more important. They like to come together for the community to talk and the activities and those kinds of things are really more important than actual ministry. I wonder if many churches are more committed to just the meeting together, just being together, just almost like a social club. I know many are going to say, no. Ministry is most important. Everyone says that, but I guarantee you, if I've watched it my entire Christian life. Hey, we want to have a potluck. We want to have a picnic, whatever the event is. Guess what? Always gets canceled on the calendar. The preaching always gets canceled. Hey, we're gonna cut the sermon tonight, or we're not gonna have church tonight because we're gonna have a potluck. Hey, we're not gonna have church tonight because we're gonna have a picnic. Hey, we're gonna be having a fellowship after church, so we're gonna cut the sermon short. Okay, and we may just do a little. And why is it always the sermon that gets cut out? Why? Why is it always the teaching that gets cut out? Why? Because I'm going to argue it's something about the community is more important than the ministry. Because if ministry was more important, I would be looking around, whoa, guys, we got a building here. It's a 206-year-old church. We've got a legacy. We've got a building. What can we do to start ministering in a different way? What can we do? Because I'm saying as long as you've got the facilities, all you need is an internet connection, a microphone, and you can come up with every creative way to just spend hours trying to minister to people, wherever they may be, wherever they're going through. The church at some point is going to have to realize that there's still a lot of people in the culture that's got questions about God, about morality, about purpose, about sin, about failure, about whatever is going on in their life. They've got all kinds of big questions, eternal questions about ultimate reality. And yes, but guess what? They're not going to the church to find the answer. They're not going to the church to find the answer. They're hopping online. They're watching TikTok videos. They're on YouTube. They're on podcast apps. So the church, why would you just say, well, maybe our ministry in person is dwindling? Doesn't mean you stop the ministry going out. You just have to find a new way. What's more important, the ministry or the meeting? Now, I'm not saying we should disband. I'm just saying that some churches, it seems so much money goes into having a building to meet that more money goes into the upkeep and the staff and all of that than it does to actual ministry. And then when those numbers dwindle, the first thing is to cut and run. Well, that's it. We're done. We're done. Man, if that was my mentality, I wouldn't even have a church anymore. I would have given up a long time ago. I would have called it quits. But I started from the very beginning. No. We may be a small church in the middle of nowhere, but that doesn't mean we have to have a ministry that's small and remains in the middle of nowhere. We can use technology to take our ministry anywhere and everywhere. Now, yes, if I was more personable, and yes, if I taught in a more compliant way that followed the basic templates of how to teach, if I did things a little differently, maybe even our external ministry would have had greater impact. In some cases, I shoot myself in the foot because I'm always wanting to do things a little differently. But the point is, there's plenty of people out there that could do more. I'll never forget. I lived in Nebraska, and this had a profound impact on me. I don't know the pastor. I don't remember the pastor's name. I think he was a retired pastor, and he was somewhere in New Mexico. He was like a retired pastor, but he still wanted to minister. So he was turning on a tape recorder and recording tape, and then sending those tapes out to anyone who wanted them for free. All you had to do was contact him. He would send you the tapes. Now, that was before even the internet caught on. And in some cases, I don't even know, he was sending out tapes to all over the country, all over the place. And in some cases, I felt like he was doing more ministry than my church in Nebraska, where we were trying to come up with money to build a new building. And I'm like, this man's doing more ministry. I was receiving tapes from that pastor. It felt like every time I went to the mailbox, there was a new tape. Sometimes 2 or 3 tapes, sometimes 4 tapes. And I was like, this is amazing. And that had a profound impact on me. It's like he's sitting in his house recording tapes and then packaging them up and sending them out. And he's not even charging money. And yet this had another profound impact. He was doing it for free. At the same time, if I wanted to get John MacArthur's preaching, I had to subscribe for a monthly fee. I can't remember what it was, so that I could get, was it like 2 tapes a week or whatever it was? I don't remember how it worked. Maybe it was 2 tapes a week, 3 tapes a week. I think it was like 2 tapes a week. I can't remember. And I'm like, so wait a minute, I got to pay to get MacArthur's tapes, but this other pastor, he's sending his tapes for free. And you just sit there and you just look at it and go, what's happening? But see, this pastor was still finding a way to minister. So even if the church number dwindles, why should that stop the ministry? That should be, we have to just rethink our ministry philosophy, right? And now at the same time, this is very important. A lot of people who are like, well, I don't need to go back to church. And yeah, but you just remember, without the churches there, you do possibly, having the church there is a great place for the ministry headquarters, where you can minister in person and you can use that building to minister to everyone else. And it used to always bother me. And again, I don't know what happens in your church, but what happens in your church? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. What's going on in your church? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. What's going on in it? Does your church? I think that's a viable. Maybe that's not a good question to ask, but I think it's a good question to ask. To be, well, you've got the building. What's happening in it during the week? What are you doing with it? And then how many people do you have on staff? Paid staff. What are they doing? Now, I know people will say, well, there's all kinds of ministry going on. I don't know. I know that in my case, my pastors, all my pastors basically ministered to me for the most part just when I showed up to church, right? So now I did have after leaving Lutheranism, I did have the pleasure of being in churches that did have Sunday school, Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday. I did at least have that advantage. I call that an advantage to be able to have a church that at least provides that much ministry. Now, sadly, most of the people who were there on Sunday morning, usually well over 60% did not attend Wednesday. So I always felt like this is insane. So most people, even the amount of ministry that they even want to show up to receive, it's just a weird, like, we're seeing churches close because of dwindling numbers, but they don't seem to be, I guess everyone's okay with it. To me, it's like, okay, dwindling numbers does not decrease the amount of ministry. It should increase the amount of ministry. Right? In my thinking, the fewer people I have here, the more I'm going to work to minister to people out there. The more people I have here, I may have more responsibility, so it may decrease in somewhat the amount of ministry I can produce outward, but I'm still going to do my best. I just think we have to develop a new way of thinking. I think there has to be a new, and I'm not saying because things are changing. I think our focus has been wrong for a very long time. It's been wrong for a very long time. I've stated it so. These are things that have been in my mind for most of my Christian life. I can remember even being a teenager going, so what's going on in the church on Friday night? What's going on in the church on Saturday night? And I can remember trying to get, like young people to come to the church on Friday night. Like, hey, let's do a Bible study or something. And it's like, the church is just sitting there, empty, nothing happening in it. But we have to have all this money to maintain it. So in this particular case, I'm looking at the building of this 206-year-old church. It's a unique design. I will give you that. But it looks like you could do a lot in there. It looks like there's lots of things you could do. It looks like somehow you could use that to be doing all kinds of ministry in all kinds of different ways. And I've always said, if I had a staff of people, I would be coming up with, I would be using that staff to come up with ministry Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. I don't know. I guess I still just don't understand the philosophy of many churches. I just don't understand their way of thinking. And I know this is true in every organization. And I saw this, and maybe I'm just looking at it more from my military experience, so maybe this is not a good way of looking at it. But so many times in the military, the idea was, why do we do it this way? Well, it's the way we've always done it. And it's like, well, just because it's the way we've always done it doesn't mean it's the right way. Can someone think out? And I hate the phrase "think outside the box," but can anyone think differently? It's like the church is like, this is just the way churches operate. This is just the way it works. We bring in, let's say, $100,000 a year, and 90% of that just goes to maintaining the status quo, the building, the staff, upkeep. And it's like, well, how much ministry is being produced as a result of that, $90,000? Well, no, only about 10,000 actually equates to how much ministry is actually produced. And I just think, does anyone go, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way. I would be really interested. Joel Osteen's church in Houston. I would be interested in how much it takes money-wise for just the upkeep of that building. It's basically a basketball arena. I wonder how much money it takes for just the upkeep, and how many people are on staff. How much money goes for the building and for the staff versus actual how much ministry is produced in the church. I know I keep coming back to that formula, but that's what it comes down to. So if the church is dwindling, right, why is the thought disband, break up, just call it a day, we're finished, you're done? And I know there's people who've had that mentality about my church. It's like, well, you're so small, you should just quit. You should just give up. You should just it's just ridiculous. Nothing is happening. I'm like, well, wait a minute. Who are you to say nothing is happening? You do realize how much ministry we produce, right? And then some we could argue, but then I guess someone could say, are you really accomplishing anything with your online ministry? I don't know. Put it this way. I know this. I would never be able to, I'm never going to sit there and claim that I'm accomplishing great things, but I know this, I'm putting out as much content as humanly possible to hopefully have some impact somewhere. I just think the philosophy needs to be changed. You can tell me what you think. Just to throw this out. So we have a 206-year-old church that permanently closes due to dwindling numbers. There's other reports like this coming out, but I did see this. Now, I don't have the entire article. I wish I did. It's really irritating, but it's behind a paywall. But I got this just a little while ago. Math professor calculates the church will disappear by 2062. In the end, it's really just a numbers game. So now this math professor is, I don't know, I can't get to the entire article, it's behind a paywall, but they're formulating that by 2062, the church is just going to be gone. All right. Now that's a massive claim. I'm not in any way saying that it's true, but I think that everyone is now starting to acknowledge the church in its present state, its present way of operating, that is going to be, it's going to go through a dramatic transformation, maybe a dramatic reduction in number, maybe a dramatic reduction in size. But I think what we need to do is have a dramatic transformation in our thinking and our philosophy. Now, I may be, so sometimes I feel like that I'm way ahead of it. I'm discussing something and nobody is quite ready for it, right? Everybody thinks I'm crazy, that I'm wasting my time, that you're just pursuing a line of reasoning that's just stupid. And then maybe sometimes 5 years, 10 years down the road, someone will be like, hey, I remember what you were talking about in June of 2022. You know what? I think you were onto something. I'm hoping that that's the case, that I'm actually onto something here. And then maybe in time, because right now I feel like I'm just kind of out there by myself and everybody's like, whatever, what is he even talking about? He's wasting everyone's time. I don't think so. I think the church has got to think differently. I think it has to think differently. I'm not saying abandon biblical principles. I'm not saying compromise biblical principles. Just saying we have to maybe look at what we're doing and how we're doing it and see if there's a better way of thinking. That's all I'm suggesting. All right. Lots of decisions are coming out. A lot of decisions are coming out from the Supreme Court today. So there's going to be lots of people going crazy. That's probably what everyone's focusing on right now. But I think whatever the Supreme Court does, we got to focus on, well, what we're as Christians are supposed to be doing. And ministry should be the most important. And that ministry can take shape in all kinds of different ways. Like, here I am on a Thursday afternoon, or Thursday morning, I should say, a Thursday morning, talking to people around the world. I'll never get tired of that. I'll never stop being amazed by it. I never will. I just never will. I just never will. I'll just will. Maybe it's me, but I will just never stop being amazed that I can just turn on a microphone right here, grab a Bible, and start teaching and doing devotionals or whatever. It's just, I'll never stop being amazed. I know the younger generation, it's not amazing because you grew up with it, but man, I just think it's the greatest thing. And I sometimes I feel like the church has not taken as much advantage of what we have. It has not taken advantage of what is available to us, and still trying to minister with a philosophy that I think is antiquated and that things are changing. I'm not saying we abandon biblical concepts. I'm saying we have to take those biblical concepts and maybe try to maintain certain aspects of it, but merge in these new things and abilities that we have. All right, I'll stop there. You can email me your thoughts. newsif@yahoo.com. newsif@yahoo.com. I apologize if that was a little bit of, well, again, stream of consciousness. You may call it rambling, but I'm just throwing this out there. When I saw that story today about the church closing down, I was just like, why? You got a building. You got some people. Hey, we've got a building here. We need someone who's creative, who can think of some ways that we can use this building to minister in every way possible, right? Using technology and see what we can accomplish right here. In a place, I'm assuming in Massachusetts, it's not the most, it's definitely not the Bible Belt. So what could be done there? Well, first of all, how about start ministering in every way possible? It would be interesting to know if that church even has a podcast. I bet you they don't even have a podcast. I bet you they don't. I know what you're saying. Well, a church doesn't need a podcast. It's 2022. Yeah, you do. You don't need to just post your sermons on YouTube, right? Some church, we post our sermons on YouTube. Look, we've accomplished something. That's nothing. You want your sermons everywhere. And not just your sermons. You can't do more than just your sermon. You have nothing else to say. No other ministry can be done. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And that building that's costing so much money to maintain. And that office. And all that space. You can't. There's nothing else you could do. Nothing else. No other ministry you could accomplish. None. All you can do is just get your sermons on YouTube and look at us. We're really reaching people. I don't know. I don't know how many different podcasting apps out there. Why wouldn't you have your sermons there? I just don't understand it. I don't understand it. All right. Thanks for listening. Everyone have a great day. God bless.